What?
Sorry again.
The workshop meeting of the Park District of Highland Park is called to order at 6:02 p.m. Kathy, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein?
Here.
Commissioner Flores Weisskopf? Here. Commissioner Grossberg?
Here.
Vice President Ruttenberg?
Here.
President Kaplan?
Here as well. Do any of the commissioners have any additions to the agenda? Okay, does someone from the public like to address the board? Okay, this is great. Next, board orientation. Brian Romes and attorney Rob Bush to present.
Yes, so Rob Bush will be presenting with attorney with insight.
Brian, you handled that beautifully, by the way.
I'm telling you, he was the right person.
I'm just like in awe, okay, of your command.
Okay, Mr. Bush.
Yeah, and this is going to be short because a couple of things. One, you all are smart enough to know that doing this once a year or once every couple of years is not a great way of reminding yourselves and learning how to be board commissioners, and therefore we've had a lot of these conversations over the course of the year at various meetings, and also when there are questions that arise. I've gotten a call from the executive director, I get a call from the board president on the best way of handling things. And because of that, I'll call it continuing education, trying to go through everything on being a board member at one fell swoop is not a great idea. It's interesting. I've been married a long time, and my wife has had to put up with my conversations about board meeting. She recently was elected to the Oakton Community College Board of Trustees to a 6-year term. There were 13 candidates. She was in the middle, and she got the most votes. I like to brag about that now. But now I'm hearing more. She's gone to 2 or 3 meetings, and hearing it from your side is very interesting. And all of the things that she is learning about being an elected official, many of the things that you have learned. One of which, we'll go into it, is emphasizing the difference between the responsibilities of an elected official versus the responsibilities of staff. And periodically those lines get fudged a little bit. You have been elected by the residents, by the voters, to engage in all of the policies of the Park District, to promote the Park District, to provide a service of benefit to the citizens of Highland Park. You meet a couple times a month. You have special meetings. You have other meetings. But the power and authority of a Board of Commissioners comes not from any individual authority that's been granted to any of you. Actually, the Park Code gives no authority, in effect, for any commissioner to make any decision individually, to represent the Park District without the authority of the remainder of the board for any reason, or to obligate the Park District for any reason. Every decision that is made, every commitment that is made on behalf of the Park District is made by this group at an open board meeting. And all of that is governed by the Open Meetings Act, and we've talked about the way the Open Meetings Act operates many, many times in terms of notice and agendas, minutes, all of that. We don't need to go over that ad nauseum because I think you all are familiar with it. But what you should constantly remind yourselves is that you are the driving policy force for the Park District. You are not the primary processing force for the Park District. That is left up primarily to staff through your executive director and through your other senior staff, so that the day-to-day decisions are made by them from the general direction or particular directions that may be given by the board at a regular board meeting. Couple of things to keep in mind. You are a 5-member board. You are allowed, a majority of a quorum is 3, a majority of a quorum is 2. But the old rule was that a majority of a quorum could not meet in order to discuss Park District business. That lent itself to some very awkward or difficult situations where it left 5-person park boards and other local public bodies with truly either scheduling formal meetings for 2 people to get together or 3 people to get together, or not having any conversations whatsoever about Park District business in preparations for your formal board meetings. That was changed several years ago by the Illinois legislature that allows 2 of you to have a conversation about park board business without violating the Open Meetings Act. Clearly, you can't make any decisions in that conversation, but there are times when there are subjects that the Park District is going to be considering where if Brian, for Brian to know what Cal thinks, or for Terry to know what Lori thinks, Barney, for you to know what somebody else is thinking, so that you have some semblance of where the tenor is going before you get to a board meeting. The only other thing I'll address in terms of meetings is closed sessions. You are allowed to go into closed session where the public is not invited to discuss various topics that by public policy are seen to be better discussed in private, confidentially, rather than openly from the very beginning. However, and you cannot make any decisions in a closed session. Every decision that is made or discussed in closed session has to be then discussed and voted on by the full board as an agenda item at a regular board meeting. You know that at a regular board meeting, like tonight is a regular workshop meeting, and you have a series of agenda items. If for some reason there was some other item of business that you wanted to talk about, you are free to do that. The Open Meetings Act says that you can consider any item of business at a regular board meeting, which includes like workshops. You cannot vote on anything that is not on an agenda. And so we talk regularly on how to make sure that anything that's going to be voted on is going to be included as an agenda item, and that the description on the agenda is sufficiently accurate or detailed that the public, when they look at it, will have an idea that there's some item of business related to a particular topic that's going to be voted on at an agenda or at a regular meeting. All right. I've already exceeded my allotted time, but certainly, as I said at the beginning, this is not going to be a topic that we're going to talk about in brief tonight and then the issues go away. Each of you know that you have the opportunity to give me a call or give Adam Simon a call if you have an issue about the Park District, or more importantly about procedures in general. And I've received calls from a number of you over the course of the years about or related to what would be the best way of handling a particular issue. Understand that when I get a call like that, I'm going to make sure that the executive director knows about it as well, because the president, if it's not from the president, to be sure that these meetings or issues don't turn into sessions where we're pulling a surprise on someone. And it does me no good, does you no good, it does me less good for Terry to say, well, I talked to Rob, and Rob said so this, and this, and nobody's known about that conversation. I'm not picking on you, Terry. But,
He's a new guy, so we're
yeah. So that everybody stays on the same page, but we want to make sure that you have the ability to have as much information as possible as is available. The optimal way of dealing with it is for you to, if you have a question, to go to your director. The director will know an increasingly higher percentage of the answers as time goes on. Those that he doesn't know, he will either be able to direct you to me, or he will come to me with the question and we'll get you an answer. The important thing is that everybody stays on the same page, and that when there are going to be issues, and there will be issues, and you all don't agree on everything all the time, that whatever the issues are going to be, that you have an idea of what those parameters are and how they either are going to be worked out, or if they're not going to be worked out, that there's an understanding and a respect amongst the board members of why they're not worked out, and that when there's a vote, it then becomes the policy of the Park District, and that you all get behind that. Over the years, this board has been blessed with mostly 5-0 votes. It's not an accident, and it's not. It comes from a lot of hard work and discussion and thought by the board members. Understand, every decision that you make does not have to always have a 5-0 vote. There will be times, there may be times, when just somebody does not agree with the way in which the majority is going. And I would encourage any of you who find yourself in that position to certainly always feel free to vote against the proposition, or whatever it might be. I'm not in favor of encouraging people to just not come to a meeting, because then they don't have to vote no. I'm not in favor of commissioners yelling and screaming at each other. What I am in favor of always is that if someone is going to vote no, or has a different opinion, that they express what that is and explain their position. Because if you don't agree with everyone else, you may have a point of view that will convince one or two or three or everyone that you are correct. And I represent a municipality where which mostly votes 7-0, but periodically there'll be no votes, and nothing pisses me off.
Upsets you.
Upsets me.
Yes.
Although, who used that word before? Then when a trustee, when called upon to vote on an item, will vote no without any explanation whatsoever. You don't have to give an explanation, but I think anyone who is not going to be in favor of a proposition owes it to the community, as well as to their other board members, to explain why it is that they're not in favor of something that's going to be adopted by the Park District. I encourage you, again, to seek out any questions or advice or comments that you all may have with me, with Brian, with Kathy for a very short time. And to continue to represent the citizens of Highland Park in the high standard that you have done so in the past. Any questions?
No, sir.
I have a question. We have tried, as a matter of maybe it's policy, not to take action at a workshop meeting, but it's a regularly scheduled meeting. We could take action, correct?
Yes. I would suggest we go back and look at our either bylaws or ordinances to see if we have described what can take place at a workshop meeting. It may be that it says that a workshop, there should be no votes taken at a workshop. If that's the case, we may want to remove that from that ordinance so that we don't violate and there's nothing that says you can't waive your own ordinance
Right.
and take a vote.
Suspend the rules?
Hmm?
Like suspend the rules?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But since we have not ever, or we don't typically take action at workshop meetings, the public, and they see an agenda for a workshop, while they may not want to participate or come and participate at a meeting where you're going to talk about something, but come to a meeting where you're going to vote about it, that doesn't make sense to me, but they may have different schedules. In order to make it more clear that we can vote at workshop meetings, I would be sure our ordinances are consistent with that.
And I would add, Barney, that I think thinking out loud the reasons why we don't do that, one of the things is that the workshop meetings are not televised, whereas the regular meetings are when we're taking action for transparency purposes. If we're going to vote, I think then all the meetings should be televised, and there should be a videotape of the meeting. One of the reasons we don't do the workshop meetings is that because it allows more of a freer discussion about items, and then we can have a discussion at a regular meeting when the actual vote occurs, but allows, I think, a more freer view, articulation of viewpoints when you don't have, potentially not accusing anybody out here, maybe I'm the one guilty of it, of grandstanding a little bit, and so if I would, so I'm pointing the finger at myself. So it gives an opportunity that you're not playing to, a board member will not be playing to the camera, so to speak.
Aren't all of our workshop meetings audio taped anyway?
Yes, but they're not videotaped.
No,
Yes.
I
So
would-
you can disguise your voice.
Yes.
I was asking because there are times when there's things that should be actionable, and we have sort of said, well, we can't do it at this
Right,
meeting.
we have to wait 2 weeks to.
Or we could just do a special meeting on the piggyback of a workshop
But
meeting.
the point is, we don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to.
Yeah.
That's all I was
Yeah.
trying to get to.
Okay.
Yes, but again, I would make sure that we are empowered to do that by our own rules.
Our executive director is going to review that.
Yes, I
There's nothing in the policy that says we can't. It's more of a practice. So.
and since we have not had that traditionally, I would caution you to only use that option under very dire circumstances. I don't know what the difference
Because
between
if we
dire or
don't do it
very
right,
dire.
Cal won't have a chance to grandstand.
Thank you.
Well, and having not taken votes at workshop meetings historically, there may be a view in the community that you've taken a vote at a workshop meeting in order to not do something at a regular board meeting, which wouldn't be the case necessarily, but would create conflict where none need exist.
I understand. I understand.
All right.
Terry? I have two questions.
Sure.
And this really, both of these questions come out of the meeting that Barney and I have had with the staff with regard to the policy manual, so I don't know if you're sticking around for that
Yeah,
or not.
I am.
So, but I might as well ask the questions now while I'm on a roll. The first one is with regard to social media policy. I know that we talked about as a group that we were going to look at other towns and other governmental entities and see what they've done. I don't know if there's anything's been done about that, or we're progressing
Yep.
with that.
Yep.
Okay, and the
Yeah,
second
so-
one, I'd like to have your opinion on this, because I'm guilty of this, just like maybe some of my counterparts, is that with regard to how do we hold ourselves out? I mean, we're elected officials, we're park board commissioners, we get the authority from the board. So if we serve on another, a board or something in their literature, if they note that the person's a park district commissioner, is that proper? Number one, if the board has not authorized the person to serve on a board, on another outside board? And number two, with regard to endorsements, because when one of us will endorse a candidate, whether it's for Park District or another office, you see, Mayor of Highland Park, their name, their title is next to their name during the endorsement. And in the last election, someone used my name and they put Park Board Commissioner next, and then obviously this board did not authorize me to endorse a certain candidate. So the question is, was that proper or was that improper?
Well, I'll talk for a minute about the social media policy,
Yeah.
because it is certainly something that is a very fluid topic. If you've read the news today, a federal court found that banning people from your Twitter account is illegal. It's a violation of the First Amendment. You can't just accept the comments of people that you agree with. And to the extent that we have a Facebook page or a Twitter account or whatever we have, we then have to be willing to acknowledge people who are going to criticize the Park District, that those comments go on the account and that they stay on the account for whatever time period we leave comments on the account, or we say we're not going to take any public comments on our Twitter or Facebook account. Those are issues that need to go into your social media policy. There's no right or wrong answer.
What about individual commissioners having a social media account? If we attempt to limit that, are we limiting their ability for free speech?
I think so. I would be very careful about saying that any commissioner cannot have a Facebook page or cannot have a Twitter account. And I also don't think that we would be on solid ground to say that you can't be identified as a Park Board Commissioner. It's like saying they can't put Cal Bernstein, real estate attorney, after your name or however. Each of you doesn't leave your First Amendment rights at the door when you get elected and when you sit here. So that if you endorse a candidate, I don't think you need the permission of the board to acknowledge, to
Use your title.
Use your title. I'll leave it up to you whether you think that you're going to announce around election time, I want you all to know that I'm endorsing so-and-so, and that you're going to see you see those newspaper ads with all these people's names, and if some have titles, that those get included. I think that I would be circumspect in how you use your title, only because people may think that you have more authority than you do. But there's nothing in the Park Code that says that you cannot identify yourself as a Park Board Commissioner in a letter to the newspaper, in however else you want to use it, if you want to put it on your mailbox. I'm not sure you want to do that.
One of those high school football signs.
Yeah. Well, like, for example, the city of Highland Park right now has a policy with discouraging the city councilman for engaging in a dialogue in a thread on a Facebook page, and especially as a councilman something.
Yeah.
And is that violation of their First Amendment rights?
Yeah, well, that's why it discourages them.
Yes.
It doesn't say it prohibits them, because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's not something that you can expel someone from an elected position. And why get into a fuss about it? I just think you each need to recognize that as a Park Board Commissioner, you have responsibilities to this group, as well as responsibilities to the community, and in some respects, certain responsibilities to yourself come third, and that you should think about that as you decide how you want to use your name out there in the community, and even more circumspect in how you want to use your title.
So along those lines, Rob, is it appropriate for us to endorse candidates, period? You know, we have city council people who want it to be, who ask for endorsements, and at what point is it, like you said, we're third, our interest where it looks like we're rubbing elbows because because we work with the city or the school board, there's no rules against or anything like that?
No,
It's just judgment.
no. You can't use Park District time or Park District paid-for materials to engage in political activities.
Starkman, is that what it is?
No,
Sorry.
it's the Prohibited
Yeah.
Political Activities Act.
Okay.
Just as we can't have employees going out during employee time circulating materials on behalf of any candidates, I would not recommend you use any kind of your formal Park District possessions, things that have been paid for by the Park District, in any way, in any political campaign, because that is prohibited.
Oh, interesting.
And again, as these things come up, we'll talk about it.
Are you going to follow up? Are you going to do the next red line? Are we going to go through that, or how is that going to work? The next agenda?
The policy manual?
Well, I don't know what's coming next, I guess. So before I decide whether to ask Rob, I just want to know if I have.
You can ask Rob. If
Okay. There was just one line, and you kind of touched on it briefly. I took a picture of it because I don't know if I'm going to find it.
What a good idea.
I lost it.
It's the tech guy.
Here, it's one of the bullet points. It's actually on page 14 of 14 of the Ethics and Conduct. And I talked to Brian about this earlier today, and I just wanted to get the stats. I just wanted to throw it out there. It just seemed one of the only bullet points that sort of said to the board, this is none of your business. So I just want to just get it. Okay. It says, I will expect to spend more time in board meetings on operational policies, programs, and procedures than on business detail. I think we do that. It just seems odd that that's there. It's like taking an oath on it, and I'm not sure that any of us get in the weeds on it. That was the only one that stood out to me, in talking to Brian this morning about it, I understand that a lot of these are best practices and they come from IPD or whatever organization that synthesizes this material from around the state. I just want us to really go through it and don't just copy and paste. Maybe give it some thought or circle that one. I don't know. I don't know how the board feels about it. I haven't talked to anybody else about it.
Well, I can guarantee you that nothing that this staff has done or this board does is copied and pasted, and a lot of thought is put into it. And I did touch on it, I think,
Yeah.
where there's nothing in the park code that prohibits a park district board from making a decision on how many pencils you're going to buy. But for a district of this size, this magnitude, in this community, for a board like yours to take that kind of approach, you're going to be creating more than full-time jobs for yourselves. And it gets away from the spirit of the operation of a park district, of any local body, especially in Illinois, where you have 5 elected people who are in effect volunteers. You get big pay for this, nothing. And your job historically, and I think historically not just in Illinois, but historically nationally, is for the elected bodies to put together the policies, practices, and procedures, and to have those be implemented by your professional staff. And if you're paying attention, and maybe it's in the word business and trying to differentiate that with what comes before it, but if you're getting involved in the nuts, the nitty-gritty,
Okay.
You're not,
I understand.
okay.
I think I would feel comfortable if the period was right after what you said. There's 1,000 things that you could say after that period. Don't go around and step on counselors' toes. Don't call the executive director 50 times. I'm just saying that if it said, I will expect to spend more time in board meetings on operational policies, programs, and procedures. And I guess that's just, it just seems weird that that they pick out operational, business detail.
Terry, what is common sense to you might not be common sense to other board members moving forward in the future, in the past. Unfortunately, it has been an issue. Sometimes it's unintentional, but it's really just a check. It checks us and reminds us that we're not here to micromanage. We're here to support the executive director and give feedback and input. So, that's.
Well, if it doesn't bother anybody else, then that's fine. That was the only thing that I was just odd that they picked out that one thing to say, yeah, you don't want to do that. When there's 1,000 things we don't want to do, probably, to micromanage the staff. That's just right. I don't know if every board member shares that feeling around it, but.
Show me which one was this.
It's on page
14 and 14.
It's on 26 of 341. At the top, it's 28 of 341. It's page 14 of 14, policy 2.01, ethics and conduct. It's about the 7th one down.
Fourth from the bottom.
Thank you.
Buried in the sea of
Yeah.
red.
Nobody could say I didn't read this.
No, you read it.
If I found that one. Do you see it?
I'm pulling this out.
Yeah, page
I
25.
think, Terry, you may be taking the term business detail
Mm-hmm.
too fine a point, in that it's meant to be more a general description of day-to-day nuts and bolts, nitty-gritty. And since those aren't legal terms, you really wouldn't want to include them in the policy.
I'd actually feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I understand. But I think that's what it's intended to describe.
Okay.
The nitty-gritty is dealt with by the nitty-gritties.
All right. I mean, if nobody else is bothered by it, it's so weird how that just stuck out to me. So,
Brian, I trust you'll keep a log of when somebody focuses on the business details and bring it back to the board, please.
I want a group email.
He'll have a bell.
Well, it does indicate at board meetings.
I have one
That
more
makes
thing to
sense.
add on operation, or on my part of this. Because, and it's a FOIA issue, not an Open Meetings Act issue. Every communication that you all have, either between yourselves or with the Park District, that deals with the business of the Park District is FOIAble. It's in effect a public document. Each of you, from time to time, uses a non-Park District email address to talk about public business, to go back and forth with Brian or me or whoever. If I could encourage you to use your Park District email for Park District business exclusively, and that you try to wean yourselves off of using your personal email addresses. When the time comes that something gets FOIA'd and we have to ask for your computers and iPhones or whatever, your smartphones, in order to search to make sure that you've produced everything that has to do with the Park District that's on them, which will be very inconvenient if it ever happens. We keep a good record of the communication that we have amongst the staff and between the staff and the commissioners. But it is one of those tenets that operationally, if you could try and have that discipline in how you communicate with the Park District, you may save yourself some hassle.
Well,
down
that's,
the line.
actually, it's an interesting point, because I'm guilty of that. I admit it, because I'm at work all day in front of a computer, and my work email account is open, my Park District email account's not open during the day when I'm at work. And the way they get a hold of me is they send it to my office. But if the staff is communicating with my work email and I respond, there's a record of that through the fact that the staff email address has the correspondent going to me and responding to me.
We
So
have
there's
a-
for the Records Act, there is a record of it.
Sure.
In-house.
I'm not challenging that.
Okay, so what's the issue then?
The issue is that someone at some point is going to say, I don't believe you've given me everything, and I want to see Cal Bernstein's work email to make sure that everything that has to do with the Park District that I'm asking for has been given to me. And a judge is going to order that.
And what about if the fact is I have attorney-client privilege information on my computer?
They will figure out a way how to filter through all of that. The point is,
Well, but if
You
it's
wanna
regardless
get-
of my personal email account
Yep.
or my work one, they have the right to get my my work computer.
Mhm.
If I'm sitting at work and I have 2 email accounts open, they'll have the right to get my computer anyway under that scenario.
not if
Right,
it-
I
not-
don't have a dedicated computer at home that's Park District
Yeah.
email. So to do what
But they
you're
only have the right to
suggesting,
look at your,
to do what
Park
you're
District
suggesting,
related
I
email.
need to have a dedicated computer.
Well,
Yeah.
and that may be the easiest way to handle this. I know it's an expense. Part of my job is to tell you worst-case scenarios.
Yeah.
And there are enough cases about this where you don't want to be the name on the case. And we've had FOIA requests for emails that, and you've seen them, where the stacks are like this high. And fortunately, whoever we've given the emails to has accepted that we have given them everything that they're entitled to. My fear always is that someone has an email from one of you about a piece of Park District business, and then they FOIA the Park District for, and we don't give them that one because for whatever reason we didn't find it. Then that's when they're going to say, all right, I want every one of C. Bernstein at, because here's a copy of an email that I got from Cal Bernstein, and it wasn't given to me in response to my FOIA request. So there must be at least that, if not more, on Cal Bernstein's work account. So I want at least a judge to look and make sure that everything's been provided to me.
What about, on occasion, if I clean out my emails and I will delete some, should I not?
I would not delete any Park District email. I would forward every Park District email to Brian or Liz or somebody, so that you can at least say that you've done that. And remember, these days, unless you stomp on your piece of equipment, nothing's ever lost. And if you delete it, there's a way to find it. I wouldn't rely on that. But if you can honestly say that every Park District email, Park District related email, has been sent to the Park District, if not done through the Park District, then that will likely satisfy a judge.
Well, every email with the Park District, there's, at least for me, my practice is that I always include the president and the executive director on every email I send with regard to Park District
Yeah,
business.
And that may be enough. I'm
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I got it.
this is something that will never come up, but if you want to talk about best practices,
This is what Barney said. We get a segregated computer just for email for the Park District.
But most,
Start
a
folder.
judge
Can't you
won't.
just start a folder in your
I-
Right,
personal
I mean, a
email?
judge
I
wouldn't
have
go into your personal
20
email.
Park
Yes.
District folders. I break
Well, they
it
may
down,
not read them,
but
but
sometimes
they'll
you delete
Get your phone or your computer,
because.
and
But yeah, my
they'll
work
start
one
going
has
through it.
25, 30 folders of Park District Lives.
And they're going to say, well, how do we know that all the Park District emails are in Brian's folders? We want to search his entire computer in case there's additional emails in there.
Oh.
It's a fishing expedition.
Yes, and we can fight it.
Be proactive as you can.
So the bottom line is
That's-
spend a couple $100 and get a cheap computer for email. That's what he
Yeah, but
said.
then you have to have it on, or somebody's gonna call you and say, hey, I just sent you an email.
I know, if I got 2 computers on my desk already. I don't need a third.
Exactly.
It's not practical.
Well, it's something for us to talk about.
Yeah.
Not in an exchange of email, we'll talk about it in
Yeah,
a meeting.
but-
All of our personal emails.
Not open.
In an open meeting, yeah. It's
All right.
gonna be an open
Any other
meeting.
questions for Rob?
Here's a
Thank
question for you. If you use a computer exclusively for Park District business, should we buy it for ourselves, or should the Park District buy it for us?
Park District should buy it for
And
you.
it's Park District property.
And when you're on the board.
We
you want
have
to
them.
do
We should take our ThinkPads
Yeah,
home.
we do these babies.
We have them right here.
I don't know, what, all you need is an iPad.
What?
Other boards that I've been a part of, we've done iPads.
So you provide, other boards provide?
Each board member will get an iPad, the iPad will be loaded with the board packet will automatically get pushed to you, to your iPad. The agenda will be pushed to you, your email will be on it, and then you just have an iPad to carry around.
Do you think about that, guys? What do you think of that?
So-
Can't watch the baseball game.
Yeah, everything's gonna be locked.
Yeah, but the thing is what he's saying is that they can still search my computer, and I have attorney-client privilege documentation on my computer.
Give it some thought. You don't have to decide it tonight.
We have all those
And-
iPads?
And Elliot, if they want to do a forensic search on my computer, they could take my computer and then one of them just do work.
That replacement computer will cost you a whole lot more than an iPad.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll stick around for the policy manual review.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rob.
Jeez, I feel better now.
Yeah.
I came in in a good mood. It's like,
I just realized what we signed up for
yeah.
8 years later.
You ready for the
8 years
policy
of college
manual?
down the drain.
All right, Brian Rome's to present policy manual review.
So as Rob just said, one of the very important roles of the Park Board of Commissioners is to adopt and approve a policy manual. And the policy manual is meant to describe existing policies that guide the administration and the operation of the Park District. So in an effort to stay current with state statutes and administrative regulations, most notably the Park District Code, staff and board review the policy manual regularly and make necessary updates. Revisions and new policies are typically updated annually, but every 5 years, we conduct a full review of the entire manual. And this is to ensure that all of our policies are relevant and current to industry best practices as well as current Park District Code. Park District staff reviewed our policy manual. We also met with Commissioners Ruttenberg and Commissioner Bernstein on numerous occasions to review and discuss recommendations and additions. Additionally, the entire manual was reviewed by Park District Counsel, Ansel Glank, Adam Simon, who provided staff with updates that were necessary or best practices from Illinois Association of Park Districts. So the changes and revisions were also sent to all the board members prior to tonight's meeting for each of you to review and ask any questions of me. And tonight is really just final comments or questions that you might have before we bring this to the board for approval at the regular board meeting later this month.
I just want to say that I appreciate all the work that you guys put into it, that Cal and Barney put into it. It's 235-page document, which was well thought out and well done.
We thank you. My comment would be that this
Page 14, section 14.
would be amazing. No, this entire document would be amazing to put in front of a new board member. You know, we talked about that a little bit too. That just learning, I got a very good tutorial on budgets when I first started. This would have been great.
And this is Rob's document.
Whatever this and the red line,
Yes, orientation manual.
Yeah, they used to give us a handbook, some IPRA, it was this.
yeah, right. It was
That
too
is
much to
kind of a nice
synthesize.
thing that
But
we could build on
yeah,
it.
something like this would be great for any future board members.
Great.
Do we need to do anything on the policy manual then, Brian?
Today?
Yes.
No.
At a workshop, Barney.
It'll come back before us on the 23rd.
This is
for
very dire,
a vote and approval.
very dire.
Unless you think we can't go 2 weeks without having a new policy in place.
I would just encourage, in the meantime or just after we do it, that all staff is really clued into the changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do a staff training to go through all the updated policies, make sure it's all clear.
All right. Perfect. No more? Thank you.
We spent a lot of time on it. I don't need to,
Yep.
there's nothing else I have to
Sure.
go over.
Mr. Smith, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. First isn't so bad. It's our environmental
Thanks.
report card presentation.
All
Thanks,
right.
Rob.
Thank
Good
you.
seeing you.
Hi, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for cheering me up.
Hey, you're getting a new piece of electronics. Come on.
Maybe.
That you'll never open.
All right, so my first presentation is to talk about the Illinois Park and Rec Association's environmental report card. So what this document is, it's a self-assessment tool that park districts can use to measure their stewardship and environmental impact. And as the board's aware, we are currently undergoing the Distinguished Accreditation Review. As part of that process, we conducted this review. And the way it works is it is 79 questions. It's an internal review that staff does, so the planning department oversaw this. We met with other staff to answer a number of these questions. It covers a variety of topics. There's different sections: programming, parks and natural resource management, open space preservation, fleet management. So it kind of covers all aspects of the park district. And so this is an example of it here. I'll make it a little bigger so the rest of the group can kind of see. But it asks these questions, and then you gain a certain number of points. And for the most part, we felt that the park district did very, very well. You can receive up to 100%, and our final score was 89%, and they rank it in 5 sections, and that was the top tier of the second ranking, so we felt that was quite good. What's good about these, though, is it kind of reminds us about what we're doing, but more importantly, what we're not doing and what we could potentially do better. So I just want to touch on a couple of items that were a note to us that something that we could potentially focus on a little more. One of the questions here was, does your agency make conscious efforts with all departments, or do they have written criteria to purchase products that include the following? So this would be having written standards on requiring certain purchases to have minimal packaging or a certain amount of recycled material, things like that. So this is something that we don't necessarily have in a policy that we could certainly improve on. A couple other examples that staff found in here were it asked for an assessment, a percentage of the number of vehicles in your fleet that are alternative fuel sources, electric or hybrid. That's something that we do not have any of right now. We did have one hybrid vehicle at one point. So this is something that staff are continuing to look into. We are looking for other sources to acquire some of these vehicles while also kind of balancing our needs to make sure it would be the right fit. So that's something that staff are focusing on. And another effort that staff are currently focusing on is solar. We certainly have some energy conservation measures in some of our facilities, but solar energy on some of our facilities is something we don't have. And so staff are currently working on a couple of opportunities where we might be able to bring that to the district, and we will be coming back to the board hopefully sooner than later to talk about some of those. So with that said, I know the entire tool was in the board's packet. I don't know if anybody had any questions about anything.
Who comes up with the standards? Because it's if it's a good tool for you, then it's a good tool.
So it's put together by the IPRA, the Illinois Park and Rec Association. They have like committees. It's their environmental committee, and so that was the idea. Is that it's kind of industry-wide standards,
Yeah.
and then you're kind of comparing yourself to other districts in the rankings.
Yeah, it looks powerful.
If there aren't any other questions, I'll move on to my next presentation.
Okay. And the one we're dreading.
Oh,
Dreading, that's funny. Drudging.
I'm back to talk about Rosewood Beach. So, this is just another update, but I do have some important information to share with the board. So, the photo up here is the area that everyone knows. I kind of skipped the intro in here. I think we've talked about this a few times. This is the area near the Interpretive Center.
When was this photo taken?
This photo was taken in early May. So this is the overlook area, and there's kind of the Shays Lounge area that we've been talking about, addressing some of the issues with the drop-off and putting in a railing in that area. So this was in early May when we were kind of assessing that, and we came to the board. Here is another photo just kind of further back, and you can see the rest of that overlook area is all through here. So I'm showing this because I want to give the board an understanding of the changes we've seen in just the last 2 months. As we know, lake levels continue to rise. It continues to pose challenges. However, they're really the amount of impact seems to be almost exponential at times. So this was in early May, and it's actually, I'm going to zoom in here. It's a little tough to see.
God.
This was last week, and I'm going to zoom back. I want to note. Okay, there we go. The one of the items is the water levels continue to rise.
Yeah.
My understanding is about this time last year, our water levels are about 15 inches higher. So it's continuing to rise. You can see the water line here. This was a relatively calm day, and then. Okay. 1 second, I'm having some.
It's been washed out completely.
We'll just- And then you can see here how much closer the water is in the washout. And then I'm going to show you here, this section here of the overlook, this was last week, and this was today. And you can see you continuing to have significant erosion, and in the distance here is that Shays Lounge and continues to be eroded away. These stones were put in with an effort with this filter fabric to mitigate some of this, but the lake levels are simply too high for this, and so it's continuing to erode away. And then here is a picture, not quite as dramatic, but this is the middle swimming cove, and you can see here.
How many feet of sand space have we lost in the middle cove?
I wish I could tell you.
I went down Sunday, and it's 30, 40 feet of
Yeah.
play areas.
You have here. I don't have the exact measurement, but it's between 10 and 20 feet here. This distance here, so it is coming closer. So that's obviously the current conditions. Now, what are we doing about it? We have met with Smith Group, who is the firm that we've worked with on numerous lake-related projects. They were the firm that was hired when Rosewood was completed to do this long-term monitoring study, so they have a lot of data on this site. And they're also the firm that's assisting us in obtaining that beach nourishment permit, so that down the road, when it's adequate to try to re-nourish all these coves, we can bring in sand. And then we've also met with Thatcher Foundations, who is the firm that designed and installed the revetment around the Interpretive Center building. So there is a sheet pile wall underground around the front and the north and south sides of the Interpretive Center building to protect that structure if the sand were continue to erode. So what we're also doing is talking to firms like Thatcher about the need to add more revetment, such as a sheet pile wall in areas, for example, by that overlook or the parking lot area. At this time, we've met with both of those firms, and staff is continuing to meet with a couple other firms, and the plan is to come back, most likely at the next board meeting, with more detailed information and some recommendations on how to move forward. The consensus, though, at this point is meeting with those firms and meeting with staff, is that we need to take some sort of action this fall. So that would be the plan.
Do we need any permits for that?
We would. It would be part of that process.
These emergency repairs, or
Yeah.
what's the permit process for that?
It is. So I'll go back to these pictures here. If there was something we wanted to do here, for example, if we were going to put a certain amount of sand there as more of a preventative measure, to get us through a season or so, we understand it could potentially get washed away, but it would be there to help, to give the lake something to eat up that's not the sand there. The district does not have that permit just yet, but we could go to those agencies, including the Corps, and request that, and most likely very relatively quickly receive that approval.
Can I make a suggestion on this? As time is of the essence and it's an important topic. I talked to Brian about this earlier today, too. I understand that there's more work that staff needs to do, and I would encourage staff to do it and get us whatever reports are with your recommendations as early as possible so that we can have as much time to review it before the meeting on the 23rd. I don't mean to put extra work on you.
Sure.
But this way, we can have a healthier discussion about it with everything in front of us. And maybe a more streamlined discussion on how to handle the problem.
Right.
Is there any stability issues with that area that you're showing us right there?
Yeah, is that a support post?
Yeah.
Not the thing on the corner, but to its right.
No,
a little bit?
there are wood piles that are
There.
all driven in here. Yes, you can see them.
They're just temporary.
No.
No.
Oh,
no.
okay, that's
Those
what I
are
meant.
those are the supports for
Yeah,
the
okay.
structure.
Okay,
The whole boardwalk is sitting on supports.
yeah.
So are we in danger of having that area collapse?
No, we don't feel like that way right now. No. But we obviously want to. We certainly want to mitigate this erosion as it could continue.
And we also want to mitigate the potential of someone standing there and it collapsing.
Sure.
And if you guys would check it more often than not, it would be appreciated.
Sure.
Do you think go ahead, Lori. Sorry.
Is this the area where we're putting the prettier fence?
Right. This was the area that we've discussed putting in a railing.
Has the city engineer looked at this?
Is the city? No, the city.
We have any engineers that have looked at this yet?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, the firm, the Thatcher Foundations, who we had out to talk about the revetment, they're also the firm that drove all those piles that put those in. So they've been on site.
Have we received any complaints or any comments from the public regarding this? Because I was down there before this meeting. It's striking.
Mhm.
Any comments at all?
I haven't directly received any.
Just questions. People are starting to question the interpretive center, that it's safe.
I think what in the process between now and the 22nd, we could work on some type of release with regards to assure the public that the interpretive center is secured. There's
Yeah,
no
we-
danger.
Talked about putting something on our website and then something in the.
Good, it's
Let's
striking.
give it to Karen
park
and
line.
everybody. Let's put it everywhere we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
When
that
we
is-
built that was
It's Fort Knox.
touchy.
Yeah. And then the other thing, I was down there, I took pictures, but I can't really share them. But with regard to the outflow from the ravine, it looks like the repairs were done to the north side, correct? The north side by the bridge?
There was work on both the north and the
And
south
so, yeah,
side,
so
but
that's
the
all
primary
done.
focus.
So those
yes.
big rocks there, that's the repair. I actually focused on that today when I was looking there. And then it looks like there's water that's being trapped underneath the bridge. It's not draining into the lake because it looks like there's sand is built up there and it's kind of trapped there. Is that natural? or-
That whole system is really dynamic and it changes regularly.
Okay, so the water on Big Rings is still flowing into the lake from the ravine.
You'll see the mouth of that ravine shifting quite a bit.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I saw that today, too.
Yeah, I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is what I was talking about. This area right here.
This is from the bridge. So,
Right, that's what you're saying. Yeah, see, this just moves around.
yeah, so it's like it's trapped there. It's like right there. It's trapped. Almost creating a pond.
Okay.
Okay, wow.
Save those pictures.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
this is the repair work.
They're now-
Forward by Brian Williams.
Okay. Well, good thing we have Brian on top of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Jeff is
thanks.
on top of it.
He's going to change the weather.
Okay, review of vouchers. Mr.
Bernie?
Becker.
Okay, the vouchers are before you. I'd be happy to answer any questions. One thing I'm excited to see is the extent to which we're using the P card. It's like double what we're paying checks for, which was the whole idea when we put it in, so that's just great. But beyond that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Barney, did you review everything today?
I have no issues.
Excellent.
Brian, at the August workshop, can we get a report, like a mid-season on Sunset Valley? I assume you were going to do that anyway. When are you planning on doing that?
We were actually planning on doing that, in
The next meeting, the next meeting.
board
Next meeting?
Yeah, in July.
That's just going to have the June numbers, not the
Yeah.
July numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
There is a question I have that's not budget related. Is that I
Yeah,
just?
shoot.
When are we supposed to get the results of the survey?
So that'll be at the next board meeting.
It will be. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, we were meeting on Friday about that.
Yeah, staff and Lori are gonna have an initial meeting this Friday, and then it'll be presented at the board meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
No closed session? Oh, awesome.
So moved.
Unless you'd like to stay for.
No, I want to go home,
I
I'm
could
tired.
Find something.
Terry moved, I second.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Great
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.